Welcome back, brothers and sisters. Tim, Braden, Second Legacy, and this is going to be one you guys are going to love every second. And by the way, you're also amazing. Today, we are going to walk you through something that Chris Murphy said. He snuck it out on the internet, thought he could get it by the bloodhounds of the 2A, and it turns out that is just not the case because we're always watching, Chris. We're like angels in the outfield. We're always watching. But what we're going to do today, guys, is I'm going to show some stuff to Tim that he's never seen before. So you get to see his raw reaction. It could be crazy. It could be great. It could be not live worthy. We don't know what's going to happen, but I'm so excited. So make sure that you guys hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on. Anytime we critique gun controllers in the wild, we don't know what's going to happen. So let's deploy that sarcasm to a everyday humor. And Tim, are you fully ready for the Chris Murphy?
Yep. Let's hit the Chris Murphy.
I don't like Chris Murphy.
No, I know you don't. I don't think that people around him in his like immediate orbit like Chris Murphy. His staffers probably don't like Chris Murphy. I don't even think Chris Murphy likes Chris Murphy at this point.
That's like 8 levels of dislike, but that's okay. We got to get into this because who he's talking about, Tim, let me set this up for you. He is talking on his own Twitter feed to Rob Wilcox. Now, Rob Wilcox, he's a special little creature. He's from the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, and he is going to set up a amazing interview with Chris Murphy. And I don't know what happened on this one. I don't know if they didn't pre-read the notes. I didn't know if they think no one was watching because it was Twitter, but I'm excited to hear your thoughts. So with that said, I've got 3 clips for us, Tim. I want to play a little game. I'm just going to play it and you just go and we'll see what happens. Right. This is number 1.
And data is, those are numbers, but I think it's important to look at the stories, and the FBI has provided those to me so I can share them with you. But one is a juvenile who went in to buy a firearm, and it was only because of the call into the state that what was discovered is that individual had been found by a juvenile court to be mentally ill and involuntarily committed to a mental health hospital. Thankfully, that person was getting the help they needed. But because of that call, made possible by your law, that individual was blocked from buying a gun. And we don't know if they would have gone on to commit a mass shooting or to hurt themselves, but that is concerning history. And that was not available prior to your law. Another example is we called in to a sheriff's office. And what we found is that the individual who literally was trying to purchase a gun had recently been arrested for attempted murder. These sales would have gone through without your background check and without implementing it under the...
So immediate thoughts, Tim.
What background check are they talking about?
Well, let me tell you, that's a really great question. This is the Safer Communities Bipartisan
Act. Okay.
The bipartisan. So that's what we're talking about. Chris Murphy's new law.
The fix, Nix, that they literally don't have any evidence of anybody actually. So this is their new 2 evidence things that they that justifies
those 2 cases.
This new this most comprehensive gun control in the last 30 years.
You nailed it. Yeah, that's the one. So what do you think stood out there to you in the first clip?
About some kid that had voluntarily committed himself to a mental institution.
A juvenile. Isn't that weird?
How does a juvenile
what's the thing about
buy
juveniles?
A gun?
Oh, that's right, Tim. I'm
glad his law stopped the juvenile from buying the gun.
Well, I mean, because it wasn't law before, right?
Yeah, I mean,
that's what he said.
But I already thought that was like something they did in like 1968 or.
That's weird. That's odd.
But hey, all credit to Chris Murphy. I mean, and he's just sitting there picking at his ear like,
nailed it.
Yeah, the kid, that 10-year-old wasn't able to buy a gun. Thank God I passed that law.
Thank God.
Yeah.
So we had a juvenile.
Okay.
That was good stuff.
And there was another one there, but I was thinking about the juvenile.
I got you. Don't worry. Don't say that on the internet.
Well, not in that way. Okay. This isn't like I fight for kids. Never mind. See, that was the moment right there. That was the moment where we're just like, whoop, well, here we go. Well, we're done. Yeah.
Yeah, later. So this is why we put him on a delay, people. So the second one was the attempted murderer.
Oh, yes, he was arrested for attempted murder. And he was out buying guns because was he acquitted?
Wait a minute.
Were charges dropped?
No, he was arrested. But that's weird. You're on a point, Tim.
But see, he had been previously arrested for attempted murder, but yet he's out roaming around buying guns? Well, did they just drop the charges? Is this another instance where they just don't really care until you try to go buy a gun afterwards? Like, well, stop trying to kill people, Billy. Now just go home. Oh, wait, you're trying to buy a gun? Oh, no, Billy. Billy, stop.
Thank God we passed this law. Thank God we passed this law.
Thank God Chris Murphy over there did his job.
Yeah. The Muff attack.
Yeah, the Muff attack.
The Muff attack. You hate
that. It seems like these
are
a couple of instances or a couple of examples that are a bit far-reaching.
A wee bit, Tim. That's what our brethren in the Scottish Isles, not Scottish Isles, the British Isles say. Yeah. It's a wee bit of a reach.
And then we have this other example here, Mr. Murphy. What's this one? We have a zygote in the womb, and it was stopped from purchasing a firearm. It had a beef against its soon-to-be mother.
Couldn't have done it without
your comprehensive legislation there, Chrissy.
Yeah. Well, Tim, I'm glad you picked up on the two things that were anybody with a pulse would have picked up on. That's good. I love that. But that was just the appetizer. Okay. The soup du jour is coming very quickly. So we've established very thoroughly that juveniles who already couldn't buy guns now can't buy guns because the law they just passed 2 years ago.
People prohibited.
And attempted murderers who are out, but they're not convicted, but you didn't tell us. But doesn't matter. He was arrested for attempted murder. We stopped that one too.
My law prevented somebody from buying a firearm that was prevented from buying a firearm.
Exactly.
So
exactly. It's like Inception. It's like Inception. You just don't know what's happening. It's so much gun control. It's just multiple layers. Well, now that I've got you primed, let's get into the fun part. See what you pick out on this one. This is number 2.
Important to remember that, if you have a mental health history, that is absolutely not a indicator of your capacity for violence, but it does mean that we should be much more careful about handing you a lethal firearm. And we also have to understand that, what we are primarily doing is protecting people from harming themselves. Again, the majority of people who die from a gunshot wound every day are not being shot by someone else. They're shooting themselves. And so someone with a complicated mental health history, especially a juvenile, somebody under 21, we have to be, to err on the side of caution when it comes to getting them a weapon. Let me talk.
What does his law do? I hate giving him credit for all this, but I mean, let's give him at least partial credit. What does his law do to prevent suicides? And he's talking about like, question. Thanks for the examples where somebody's going to go kill somebody, but we're really doing this because we want to stop suicides from juveniles who can't buy guns anyway. What
it is interesting that you bring that up.
It's like he shifted the conversation. The guy asking the questions wants to talk about murderers and would-be murderers, and old Chrissy wants to talk about suicides because technically they are. I mean, when you take a look at FBI statistics and you see this number of people that are killed by firearms, the vast majority of those are people that self-delete. So I can understand the concern there, but what does the Safer Communities Act do? And he says, I thought this was interesting. It's the mental health thing, but it's really not. You should be able to own a gun if you have mental health issues, but we just need to be very careful about who we give guns to. Well, what are you talking about? And what have you done to be very careful to okay, so you've been in a mental health institution. So let's go through this item, this checklist item. And then if you go through all this, then you can go ahead and have your gun. But if you answer this question incorrectly, well, no guns for you. What is he talking about?
Well, allow me to put on my Chris Murphy interpreter.
Okay.
I believe what he's attempting to say is the, quote, enhanced background checks for youth are what he can claim is the success rate for all of this. Now, very, very thin, Tim, because as you pointed out, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act did little to almost nothing in the realm of mental health or any sort of mental aspect of this.
Right.
But I do think it's interesting because you went very nuanced on it, and I just stayed up right at the top water level. I'm just floating on the surface, and this guy goes, we passed the Safer Communities Act because after all, we knew that it was suicide was the main problem the whole time. Well, hold on. Wait a minute.
Yeah, but what is he talking about? I guess that's...
Well, I mean, we all know, and hold on, just bear with me. We all know that the suicide is the largest portion of the gun violence numbers they always put out as gun violence. And they always are telling us that it's something that we can't even be alive and have liberty and life and free and safety from fear and all these things. I don't understand, Tim. How could we be afraid of for our own lives if the main problem is people harming themselves? And I'm not making light of people harming themselves. But when you have a person who has literally wrote and put forward so many arguments and so many posts in so many interviews around how we need to take guns because we're the most violent nation in the world and we're killing each other on the streets. All of a sudden it's, well, after all, we know we're only really talking about suicides.
Yeah.
Well,
and
when were we talking about that?
Yeah, we're only talking about suicides, and you're okay in owning a gun. What I thought was really weird is like this guy is a rabid gun grabber, right? He doesn't want anybody to have a gun for any reason. But here in this video clip, he's saying, it's okay if you have a mental deficiency or something, you're struggling mentally with something, and it's okay if you have a gun unless you're gonna do something else, and we just need to be very careful who we give guns to. I'm not opposed to giving guns to somebody with mental problems, but I just want to make sure that they go through the right background. What is he saying? Because we know that he doesn't care about you and your right to own a gun, and here he is saying, and they always like when they clue in on the mental illness side of things and stuff like that, and I get that there is an issue out there. But then to go ahead and say, 100%. But we do want you to have guns. We just want to be a little bit more careful in our screening. No, Chris, that's not what you've said in the past. What are you saying now?
We're honing on the same thing. We are diving into the exact same thing. It is a complete departure from anything that he has said prior in the last 4 years plus around gun control. Right. Complete departure.
That makes no sense.
This is the exact same guy who is just pushed forward for veterans have their gun rights taken from the Veterans Affairs Bureau because they can't balance their checkbook.
Right.
That's this guy. And then he, like you said, well, we know that that's not necessarily a precursor that you're going to do anything wrong, but, it's something, a concern. It's like, whoa, hold on a second. Like, for the last 4 years, all you've told us was they can't have guns and you guys are insane and Republicans are owned by the gun lobby and the epidemic of gun violence.
Guns for everybody.
Our entire country. Yeah. The guns for everybody agenda. And now all of a sudden it's, well, we knew the whole time that it was all suicides and self-harm.
Yeah.
Well, then why haven't we been talking about that, Chris? That's kind of weird.
Yeah. Because all we're talking, all he ever posts about, or anybody in his circle of friends, is the AR-15 is going to get you. It's like, if you walk outside the house, you're going to get gunned down. It's just crazy out there. Oh, by the way, crime's down. It's up, it's down. Like last week it was up, this week it's down because we got an election, folks. Like these people are just running in circles chasing their tail. And he does it in this video. He just completely contradicts everything he said in the past, but now he's had this moment of lucidity where he's like, okay, we're fine with people having guns. We just be a little bit more selective.
Yeah.
Exactly. Did you bang your head on the way into work this morning?
Right. Exactly. Did your boat shoes slip?
Right.
I do love how he always wears boat shoes.
Yeah.
He always wears boat shoes. Oh my God. But that was just number 2, Tim, because as you know, we work in threes, the holy trinity of content. We got to do this third one too. Let's get it.
Our bill includes the first ever federal prohibition on gun trafficking. And from what I've heard, we've already started to see some pretty significant prosecutions of gun trafficking rings that we couldn't do prior to this law passing. And again, the idea is that if you want to understand why gun murders are coming down in our cities, maybe part of it is that we are making it harder for these gun traffickers to be able to sell guns illegally in our cities.
Senator, I think it's pretty incredible to think that someone who was profiting off bringing illegal guns into our communities used to just get off with a slap on the wrist or a paperwork violation. There was no federal law that actually made it a crime to straw purchase or to engage in firearms trafficking.
Bullshit!
Dude, I was holding it so hard.
What are these people talking about? It has always been, my entire life it's been illegal. Exactly. And the Safer Community Act does nothing about that.
Nope. But Tim, you didn't hear? He just said it. The director of Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the White House. ATF straw purchases, that wasn't even enforceable. It wasn't even against the law.
Nobody ever went to prison for
totally
that.
Fine.
Unless you're an ATF and we're doing Operation Fast and Furious. They didn't go to jail, but everybody else does.
It's so weird. You didn't know they weren't against the law? Oh man, thank God we passed this law 2 years ago, and now all of a sudden straw purchases and trafficking's illegal.
I'm starting to understand why they think it's the most comprehensive gun law that we've been laughing at this entire time, because they really think all this stuff's in there. Or something.
Maybe that's it. Maybe someone told them just like literally, I cannot illustrate enough people of the Second Legacy. The guy who just said that is literally number 2 in the Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the White House.
Oh my gosh, dude. It's like passing a law saying you must have 2 grip screws in a firearm. 1 grip screw will get you in trouble and put you in jail. 3 is even worse. And then going out there and saying, well, look, we passed this law that got all the guns off the street. We stopped suicides. We even made it illegal to traffic in guns. No, actually, you just made grip screws mandatory to have 2 screws. No, but really what we did was all this other stuff. We even put a man on the sun. It's just amazing what we've done with this legislation.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, wow. I mean,
but you know what I want to ask Tim? I want to know what the ATF was doing before this law, because I mean,
I know
straw purchases weren't a thing. Trafficking was not illegal.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'll tell you, I really wonder. Fast and Furious, Operation Thor. I mean, like, all of these operations that were focusing on this thing that wasn't illegal. Yeah. It's really weird.
ATF was out there just chasing their tails, trying to charge people with non-existent crimes. It's just unreal.
Man, that must have been when they were really focusing on the alcohol industry. They were really chasing moonshiners around. That's what they were doing.
I mean, you got 2 idiots on the same stream. That's what's amazing. It's usually one of them says something stupid and the other one kind of looks at him like, oh, don't do that. But now we got 2 idiots. They're like, yeah, we did that.
Yeah, we did. Wow. We passed the ATF's rules against straw purchasing. It's so helpful. Someone should tell the NSSF, because they've had print and copy in all gun shops for 25 years about straw purchasing.
Yeah, are you the actual buyer of this firearm? It's literally one of the questions of the 4473 form that's been there for 50 years. It's like,
it's so weird.
But it's not a crime, folks. Not a crime. We fixed that with our comprehensive legislation.
So here's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to boil this down and distill this down to 2 potential outcomes here, Tim. Either we are looking at 2 of the biggest dunces on the planet while they profess to be experts on what they're trying to curtail, which will be our gun rights, the Second Amendment, or they actually have an audience that they think is this stupid. They either think we're this stupid or they're this stupid. There are no other potential outcomes.
No, they're just talking to their base, and their base is like, yeah, go, Chris, you did great things. Wow, suicides have all but stopped. And look, there's no more crime in the United States because 40% of the jurisdictions aren't reporting, and we got an election campaign to win here.
It's so odd.
I know. They're just...
But thank God, Tim.
And what's amazing to me is more people don't see the flip-flopping that are like in the middle that are trying to decide which way to go this election. They don't see this insanity. And it's right there on full display. But then again, you have to have some basic knowledge of what they're talking about. And I guess the average American really doesn't. So they go out there and say these stupid, outrageous lies. And people are going to go, wow, man, it's really, Chris Murphy does great things. Did you know that he stopped suicides?
Great work.
Yeah, I mean, wow, he's done all these great things. I mean, this most comprehensive gun control in 30 years. It's amazing. Literally did nothing. And they've been for years now. They've been trying to figure out something like we stopped 200 purchases last year.
Yeah. I mean, 200 big ones. 200 big ones. Yeah. We passed go and got 200.
So anyway,
it's like monopoly of gun control.
Wow. Well, thanks, Chris, for the chuckle. I mean, geez, if you fail at being a politician, which you're failing at, maybe you can do stand-up comedy, Chris, because you can just get up there and babble nonsensical stuff and claim credit for everything. Jackwagon. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you guys soon.